Hi guys, Jamie Humphries here for Six String Alliance, and today we are taking a look at Let Me Entertain You by Queen.
Let's go. Come on. Hey, it's a setup. Yeah. Let me welcome you, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to say hello. Are you ready for some entertainment? Are you ready for a show? Gonna rock, gonna roll ya, get you dancing in the house. Jazz you, razzle and toss you with a little bit of style. So come on, let me entertain you. Let me entertain you. Let me entertain you. Let me entertain you. I've come here to sell you my body. I can show you some good merchandise. I'll pull you and I'll pill you. I'll corral and avail you. To thrill you, I'll use any device. We'll give you crazy performance. We'll give you grounds for divorce. We'll give you Tesla resistance and a tour de force. Of course! We found the right location. Got a lot of pretty lights. The sound and amplification. Listen! Yeah! If you need a fix, if you want to hide, Stickles will see to that. With Electra and EMI, we'll show you where it's at. So come on, let me entertain you. Let me entertain you. Let me entertain you. Let me entertain you. We'll sing to you in Japanese. We're only here to entertain you. If you wanna see some action, you get nothing but the best. The yesterday of attraction, we got the pleasure chest. Chicago down to New Orleans, we got you on the line. If you dig the New York scene, we'll have a son of a bishop for time. So come on, let me entertain, let me entertain, let me entertain you. Good night. Backstage pass. There it is. Back there on the wall. I was there the whole time. Rock.
Oh my goodness. Now, there's a little backstory behind today's song. Last year, just before Christmas, my good friend Warren Hewitt from Produce Like a Pro reached out to me and said the opportunity had come to put together a performance video for Produce Like a Pro featuring Mark Martell on vocals. Now, Mark Martell has an uncanny vocal resemblance to Freddie Mercury. He's known for his fantastic covers of Queen songs that can be seen on the internet, as well as being the vocalist in the Queen extravaganza. So Warren and I set about putting a band together for the project, and Warren enlisted the skills of bassist Tony Franklin from The Firm and keyboard vocalist Steve Magora. I think, hopefully I pronounced his name correctly, who is the current keyboard player for Toto. And I brought in my good friend Pete Riley on drums. Many of you would have heard Pete's playing on the Guthrie Govan Erotic Cakes album. Warren produced the track, as well as lending his vocal skills on the background vocals and also additional guitar feedback and I was enlisted to play guitar. Now, the track is actually wound up being Mark's new single, and Warren and I decided that it would be a great opportunity for me to look at some Queen here on the Six String Alliance channel. Now, Let Me Entertain You is taken from the 1978 Queen album Jazz, which also features such killer tracks as Bicycle Race, Fat Bottom Girls, and the hugely popular Don't Stop Me Now. Now, Let Me Entertain You demonstrates the slightly heavier side of Queen. Queen was that band, the original band that would just seamlessly morph through different genres, and they were a really heavy band for the time. And this is a great example of Brian's fantastic riff writing, not to mention his unorthodox and incredibly accurately skilled use of the whammy bar. Now, it was only a matter of time before we looked at some Queen on the Six String Alliance channel. I kind of shied away from it a little bit, but I have actually, for those of you who don't know much about my background, I've had quite a long association with the Queen organisation. I was brought into We Will Rock You in London back in 2006, 2007 as a substitute guitar player, meaning that I would sit in on the chair for Guitar One, which was handled by guitarist Alan Darby, and I would take over when he wanted a day off or if he had a holiday. But it was from there that Brian found out about me, or heard about me, should I say, and approached me, or his people approached me about me joining a new band. And he came and watched me perform We Will Rock You, which was the most nerve-wracking We Will Rock You performance I've ever done. And he offered me the gig in a new band that he was putting together, which was the band with Kerry Ellis, to support the Anthems album. It also featured Neil Fairclough on bass. Neil is now the current bass player for Queen. And it also featured Rufus Taylor, Roger Taylor's son, who's played with Queen and The Darkness and everybody, and he was on drums. Now, it was from my time with Brian May. I got to play some fantastic gigs with Brian. I got to play Hyde Park. I got to play the Royal Albert Hall. I got to spend every night on stage with Brian May, sit with him at his house and rehearse guitar parts, play his Red Special guitar, hear that majestic tone night after night. It was an absolutely incredible experience. It was a life-changing experience for me. And I've had such a love of Queen. Queen, basically, Brian May was the reason why I picked up guitar. I would mime to Bohemian Rhapsody and entertain my family when I was 5 years old, when Bohemian Rhapsody was #1 in the charts. My grandmother had a chopping board that had like a round sort of surface to it with a little handle. It resembled a guitar, and I always used to mime to Bohemian Rhapsody and entertain the family on a Sunday evening on the when we listened to the Top 40. And it was from there that I saw the video for Bohemian Rhapsody and saw Brian, shrouded in smoke in his white outfit, curly lead in his Red Special, and that was it. I was absolutely hooked. He looked like a superhero to me, and I wanted to play the guitar. But it just didn't stop there. I was actually fortunate enough to be had the incredible honour of being asked by Brian if I would perform a concert with Queen. And I got to play with Queen for what would have been the Freddie Mercury 65th birthday concert in London. And there were such guests as Jeff Beck. He joined us on guitar, which was a real experience, standing on stage with Jeff Beck one side and Brian May the other. You're pinching yourself thinking, how did I end up in this gig? But also we had Mike Rutherford from Genesis and Mike and the Mechanics came and played bass. So it was an absolutely fantastic experience, and it's an experience that I will cherish for the rest of my life. And I'm, really fortunate that I can call Brian a friend and that we are still in contact with each other. Now, also the relationship with Brian continued, and I wound up, thanks to him, becoming the principal guitar player on We Will Rock You in Germany, which also included Switzerland and Austria. And then Brian put me forward for the job as the principal on the tour in Denmark as well. So as well as that, I've also played in the Live Nation show Champions of Rock here in Sweden. So I've played a lot of Queen, and Queen is very dear to me. So hopefully you're going to have as much fun learning this song as I did putting it together for the performance that I shot last year for Mark's new single and the video on Produce Like a Pro. Now, when it comes to equipment, Brian would have recorded this track with his legendary Red Special. Like I said, that's a guitar that I've actually had the honor of holding and playing. I actually remember my first rehearsal with Brian in London, and turned up to rehearsals. I was a little bit apprehensive, bit nervous. I'd spent a few days with him rehearsing at his house, going over parts, and then we were into the full rehearsals, and we were playing. I'm standing there, just hairs on the arms, hairs on the back of the neck, on end, listening to this incredible sound, just watching him play, wondering how I ended up in this situation. And we stopped for a cup of tea, and I was just looking at his gear, just like, wow, this is amazing. And he went, oh, help yourself. So I actually, I remember the first time I put on his Red Special, and the actual Red Special, and played it through his rig. And I remember turning around and looking, and all the guys and Brian and everyone was in the control room, and I just had this grin. Even my eyes were grinning. It was a real schoolboy dream moment. Now, it's the combination of the Red Special, the treble booster, and the AC30 that produce that iconic guitar sound that Brian is so well known for. I think it's one of the most unique guitar tones ever. It's just like his fingerprint. You just know when it's Brian May. And that sound has so much punch. It is so big. Trust me, standing on stage with that rig cranked up, it is absolutely incredible. But at the same time, it has so much clarity. All the frequencies are in the right place. It's got a rich, low mid-range, but it's also got that mid-range honk and that really beautiful, bright top end to it. It really is the perfect guitar tone. It's up there for me with Eddie Van Halen as one of my most favorite tones of all time. So let's talk a little bit about the gear that I'm using today. I'm using my BMG Brian May Red Special, although this is a green special. I very much love the green guitars. I actually borrowed Brian's green Andrew Guyton guitar for the entire tour, but I also took this guitar with me, and I used this guitar. You can see me using this on the Hyde Park Proms video, which is on YouTube. This is not a stock one. It was a stock one when I got it, but I've got the Addison Trisonics in here, which are hand wound by Adrian Turner. These are the ones that Brian uses in his Guytons, and I believe in his Fryer guitars as well. And my ones actually have vintage Burns magnets. Adrian told me that they were from 1963, 64, so they're around the same era as the magnets that are in Brian's pickups in the original Red Special. And they're not quite as hot. They have a little bit of a fuller tone to them. And I've got the Bourne's pots as well, which Andrew Guyton matched those to the pickups so that they clean up nicely. Brian's guitar sound is very full on. He doesn't switch overdrive pedals on and off. It's the treble booster in to the amplifier, and to clean things up, he'll back the volume down on the guitar. Now, thanks to modern technology, I am reproducing a similar tone to Brian plugged into the IK Multimedia Amplitude 5 Brian May collection, which I actually had the honor of programming. I was involved in this project very early on. My friends at IK had reached out to me, asking for assistance to get in contact with Brian, and then I showed them the route in, and then a couple of years later, I got a call saying, "Can you program a couple of sounds for Brian to test?" So I programmed up a couple of sounds, and long story short, Brian really liked them and said, "Get Jamie to program the whole package." So I programmed the original Amplitude 4 version, and then more recently, IK approached me to reprogram the presets for Amplitude 5. So it's a project that's very close to my heart. I had a lot of involvement with it, and it really is an incredibly cost-effective way of producing the Brian May tone. And also, sometimes it's not very practical to have 3 AC30s cranked fully be in your house. So if you haven't already, be sure to check out Brian May Amplitude. You can even get it for your iPad. Now, I'm getting the guitar sound into my Mac using the IK Multimedia AXIO audio interface. That's the interface that I use in the big room here in my studio. It's a fantastic interface and it really integrates well for using Amplitude. So to kick things off, let's take a look at the intro riff. We're going to be playing this E5 chord down at the 2nd fret D and the 4th fret of the G. Now this is a triplet rhythm. The whole track is a 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3 1 2 3, but it's at a very fast tempo. Incidentally, I've just realized that I've missed out an incredibly important piece of the tonal puzzle. Yes, the sixpence. I am in fact using a sixpence today. The sixpence really is an integral part of the guitar sound. So yeah, red special, sixpence into Amplitude Brian May. I just suddenly remembered that when I was about to start talking about the rhythm, and I should have obviously mentioned that when we were talking about Brian's tone. Now this riff is at a very fast tempo. It's quite a fiddly riff to play, and of course when you're transcribing riffs, when you're playing riffs, I guess this is my interpretation of how I hear the riff, but I did actually send Brian the performance very recently just to nervously get his feedback on what he thought, and he came back and said that he felt that I'd reproduced the guitar parts very accurately, but obviously, you know, some of these parts might be open to debate. So we're going to kick things off with the E5 power chord. We're playing that on the 2nd fret of the D string and the 4th fret of the G, and we have this little figure. So you play the chord twice and you pull off to the open D string, play the 2nd fret of the A, and then an open G. And then we have this slight variation on the riff. See there, you're just pulling off from the 2nd fret of the D, and then to the 2nd fret A. And then we conclude on the 3rd fret of the bottom E string. Okay, so let's put that entire riff together. This is the intro riff. I'll play it slowly. Here we go. Okay, so let's now move on to the next riff. Now, this riff is pretty fiddly to play. It's still based around that E5 chord played at the 2nd fret. I'm open to a debate a little bit about the picking of this. I've watched a few videos of Brian, although it's a little hard to see how he's doing it, but I prefer to play all downstrokes on this, but there is an argument for using alternate strumming. So we kick off with this little figure, 2nd fret of the A to open D, and then we're on that E5. So I'm strumming that twice and pulling off to the open D. And then we do the 2nd fret A, and he plays an open G there. And then we have this slightly different pattern. And then we're sliding up to the G5 power chord. Now again here, when I listen to this, I did think to myself, could I actually hear an open G chord as well? So when I double tracked the parts for the performance to give it that nice wide sound, I kind of covered myself a little bit by playing the slid chord, which you do see Brian play live, but I also included the open D and G, and it kind of worked. Again, whether or not that's on the original recording, I don't know, but that's the way I chose to play it. Okay, so let's put that whole riff together. Here we go. So we finish off there with a little pull-off figure. So that's 2 pull-off open on the D, 2 pull-off open on the A, and then 3 on the E. Now, once again, some of these open strings, when you're jumping to the open strings, it's open to interpretation throughout that riff, whether you play or open D or open G when you're playing that little 2nd fret A riff. So in other words, or You know, I don't really think it matters too much. I think it's just more about the feel of the riff and keeping that constant triplet rhythm. Okay, so that riff then repeats when the vocals kick in. So I'll just play through that. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Every so often as well, there's some percussive mutes after that little open string fill, and there's some slides as well. Okay, so now we're on to the next riff. Now, this riff's open to debate a little bit. Watching the live videos, Brian very much plays single note. That kind of thing. But listening to the record, it is 100% a double stop figure. So you slide into 7 on the A, play 5 on the D, and then you're playing 7 on the A and the D, down to 5 on the A and the D, and back up. So you get, and you're striking that and pulling off. And then we're playing 5 on the D and the G. So put that together. Okay, so then we repeat that riff. And we have this little descending figure, which is 7-5 on the D, 7-5 on the A, and then down to 3 on the A. There's lots of slides and scrapes and mutes as well. And then we have this climbing figure. Now there we're playing 2, 3, 5 on the A, and then 2, 4, and 5 on the D, and then a B5. Then we have an open E5, and there's a little slide away. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play that first portion of the song for you, so including the introduction and the first verse, or through the 2 riffs of the verse and up to and including the riff we just saw. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then we're into the middle section, and we kick things off with this little bluesy figure which follows the vocal line. And we have this little hammer-on lick, which is hammering 7 to 9 on the G, back to 7 on the G, 9 on the D, 7 on the G, and then you're playing 8 on the D, slide down to 7, pull off to 5, and then we're bending the 7th fret. So you get something like this. And then we play the B5 chord and we drop the whammy bar down. And then during this section, it is a vocal sort of scatting section with the bass and the drums. Okay, so then we conclude that bridge section, that vocal, drum and bass bridge section with this little guitar fill. Little E minor pentatonic fill. Pulling off from the 2nd fret D to open D twice. And then 2 on the A. And then we play an open D. And then we do that pull off on the 2nd fret A to open A. And then 3rd fret E to open E. So. Now, this next section is very much open to debate for me. I've watched Brian playing this on video, and it's a little bit, I can see the positions of his hands, and also I've seen Brian play chords like this. He never holds his E shapes really like so. It's always a... But the guitar is quite masked, and it almost sounds a little bit like more of a pad sort of sound of guitars. And so I've eliminated the third on that. Whether or not Brian played it this way, I don't know. So I'm playing with my thumb, the 5th fret of the E, the 7th fret D, and then I'm playing the 5th fret of the top 2 strings. So I'm eliminating that 6th fret of the G. But you could obviously play it, but I couldn't hear that tonality on the track. So you're playing the A chord. And he's just he plays 3 bars of that A chord. Again, there's some sort of little strums, slight audible strums into the chord. But again, I've used a little bit of artistic license here. And then we have this bar of the root note. It's like an octave that he's playing. So the root note on the 5th fret and the 7th fret D with a triplet rhythm. Then we're back to the A. 2 bars of that. Then we're down to the G5. So we just drop that shape down. Up, and we play that twice. Then we're up to the A, then down. Then it's like the G chord, then an open E, and we're down to the F sharp. And then we're playing like a quarter note rhythm, quarter note triplet rhythm playing across the beat. So you get this, 2, 3, 4. Now, again, like I said, not too sure whether those are the exact chord voicings. I can't hear thirds on those chords, but from watching how Brian played it, I wouldn't be surprised if he played that shape and just eliminated the third. It's just got a slightly, sort of crisper sound with the overdriven tone. Okay, so then we're into the next riff, and this sees us transposing the main riff down. So instead of playing it in E, we're now playing it in B. And this is the first big obstacle that I had to overcome on this track. It's a little bit harder with the vintage style trems that you find on the specials. Now, I've had the opportunity to use Brian's guitar as well as touring with his Guyton. And I also used one of the first generation supers on We Will Rock You Germany. I'm actually having Nigel Knight, who builds a lot of Brian's equipment, all the treble boosters, and maintains the guitars along with Andrew Guyton. Nigel actually built my big rack that you see in other videos where I'm filming in my control room. And I used Nigel's treble boosters. He's actually going to do the full conversion for me at some point, so I will have the proper trem. But this lick is a much easier lick to achieve with the kind of the trem that Brian has, that kind of trapeze style trem that he designed with his father. It's a little bit harder to achieve with this sort of Strat style. Basically, you're going to drop the whole riff down onto the chord of B. So you're playing. So you're playing the 2nd fret E, open A, and then we're playing the B5 twice, pulling off to the open A, and then sliding up to the E5, and then we play it again. And then we have this lick. Yep. There you have it. Brian is an absolute genius and so incredibly accurate with the whammy bar that he enables him to drop down to that D note. Oh, I missed it there. It's really hard. I normally dip into it a little bit. That's better. There you go. So you get... Yeah, I can do it. So, and so can you. Yeah, it is quite a fiddly lick to achieve. So you do that pull off, pulling off 2 on the A, and then to open A, then 2 on the bottom E to open E. And then we drop the bar down. Okay, then we're into that other riff that we saw, that secondary riff, but we actually play that same figure on the chords that we saw in the first riff. So you're going... So it's a riff that we've seen. He's just reapplying that riff in this new section. So you're starting off 2 on the A, open D, and then you're doing that E5, pulling off to open D, and then back to the E5. It's really, watch out for that figure there, which you see throughout. You're playing the chord, pull off, and then it's a double, and then pull off. And then we're sliding up to the G5. And then we finish off with this pull-off figure, which is 2 on the D to open D, 2 on the A to open A, and then 3 on the 6th string. And then we have... Then the next section, we're about to enter into the solo section, and we kick things off with the blues lick again. Okay, but this time we instead of doing a slow bending the 7th fret D up, we do that triplet there. Actually, bend it 4 times. So it's a little bit tricky that lick to play on the D string. But yeah, so you'll get used to it on those wound strings. It's good practice and good for your finger strength. But again, with that section, really take care with the rhythm and the groove. Okay, so now it's time for the solo, and the solo is quite a fiddly solo to play for a couple of reasons. We start off with an F sharp minor pentatonic. We have this, we come in on beat 4, so there's like the F sharp chord, as that's the tonality of the solo, although we're not playing them. We're coming in with a bend. We're in that sort of familiar shape 1 minor pentatonic. So we have 2 bends there. Want to make those quite dramatic, and then we bend up, back down to 17. And then we're just coming down the scale. 14 on the B, and that's 16 on the 16, 14 on the G, and then resolving to 14 on the D, and then you're playing 16 to 14 on the D, and then we play the 14th fret of the G, and you're kind of wobbling the bar and dropping the bar down. So you come in like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so this is the next incredibly hard bit, and I have to confess, I really struggled with this. You're playing this figure, first of all, which is 4 to 2 on the D, 4 to 2 on the A, open A, and then we play the 2nd fret of the E, and then, yep, that's it, you've got to go down those pitches. So basically it's the same as going, so you've got to drop right the way down to a low A. Okay, so that's very demanding. I didn't play it then. So there's your first pitch. It's really hard with this tremolo to get it that accurately. So you get this, 2, 3, 4. So you're trying to get those steps down. Really, really tricky lick. So, spend some time with your whammy bar. And like I said, I think that that's a lot easier to achieve on the style of whammy bar that Brian has on the original Red Special. Okay, so then we have this next figure, which is... and you're pulling off 5 to 2 on the top 2 strings. And again... and so we did that 3 times. and then we slide 5 up to 7, and then you're back to 5 on the top 2 strings. Okay, then we have the next figure, which is pulling off 7 to 5 on the top 2 strings. Then again, slide down to 2, up to 5, and then play 2 twice and pull off to open. So you get this. Okay, so then we're into that chorus section again, and here we have a slight variation. We play 4 bars of the A chord. On the 4th bar, we have that triplet rhythm again. So we have another bar there of A, then we're down to a G. Then we have F sharp. And then we have a B5. Then we have this little trill on the 12th fret to the 13th fret B. And then we're back into the main verse riff. Then we're into the next riff. We conclude that section with a variation on the original climbing figure, which is 2, 3, and 5 on the A, and then 2 to 4 on the D, and then we repeat one more time up to the 5, and then we play a B5 chord, and then we just play the E. And the music fades out and there's all that kind of backstage chattering that comes in. Okay, so I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. As I said, some of these parts are open to interpretation, and I've used a certain amount of artistic license. And before I get all the Brian May Red Special boffins writing on here, this bar, you didn't play this pick slide or that pick slide or do this or do that. You know, I'm not Brian May, and, music is open to interpretation. I don't want to worry about, on so many bars and so many seconds, I have to do this noise. I want to play the riffs, and those are the riffs, and you want to play music. Okay. That's just my attitude and my outlook to this thing. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this riff. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And like I said, I sent it to Brian, and he voiced his approval of the accuracy of the interpretation in the performance. As always, click the link and you can download the free tab and guitar profile for this lesson. And hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you enjoyed hearing my Queen experience and my Brian May experience. He really is a mentor and just such a huge influence to me. And I feel so blessed to have had that period of time where I got to play with him live and sit with him in his home and learn these parts, and ask him, how did you play this? It was one of the most educational and inspirational periods of my musical career. Anyway, that's it from me, and I look forward to seeing you here for more guitar videos very soon. Bye for now.